Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's Reddit series video from the subreddit HFY called Clint Ch.14 Home Run, written by some guy named Ted. Jane was happy. It had been a while since she'd been truly happy. The giddy kind of happy that made everything else seem to fade away, like smoke in a breeze. The source of her happiness walked beside her, his warm hand clasped in hers. "What should we do today?" she asked him earlier that morning. It had been 3 days since he had returned to the Free Fleet, and they had no pressing duties for another 4 days. "Why don't we go for a walk?" he said. "You can show me around the city, and I can treat you to dinner." So that was what they had done, spending the whole day just walking around the city. Jane had shown Clint the new Catherine City, the streets, the parks, the shops, the little things about the city that made it unique. She showed him to the library, the one of her favorite places in the city. After that, she had taken him to the Marble Park, a park with a large amount of beautifully carved statues. He enjoyed it all. They talked a great deal during their walks. It was nothing substantial, no deep secrets, but it seemed the most important thing in the universe. Every word, every gesture was a clue into the enigma that was Clint Stone. Her training as a diplomat was helpful, allowing her to draw conclusions from the smallest twitch of an eyebrow or simply a stroke of a finger as he scratched his chin. But for all of that, Clint Stone could have shown a stone wall a few things about not revealing secrets. But she did not mind. She enjoyed the challenge. On the surface, Clint was deceptively simple. He was the last survivor of his race, the last son of Earth, as he called himself. He had shared that with her the second night that they had been together, but he had not told her much more than that. As such, he was motivated by an anger and a need for vengeance she had never seen before. When Jane had looked into his eyes after he had spoken about the murder of his planet, she had seen something in there that was far darker and more dangerous than anything that she had seen before. He was also a good man. Even during his time in wandering adventure, he always helped those who needed it, and often without a regard for his own personal safety. He had a soft spot for children, and from what she had heard, woe be unto those who incurred Clint's wrath on behalf of a child. He was one of those rare beings who seemed like they had been drawn from a fairy tale, full of righteousness and honor. But underneath all of that was a strange mixture of emotions and hidden thoughts to decipher that made negotiating with wisdom seem a simple task. But she was determined to solve the mystery that was Clint Stone. And everything she learned about him just made her love him more. It was strange. She had only known him for 6 days, not counting the disastrous first meeting on Petunis Major. But Jane felt like she had known him for much longer. She didn't know much about his past, but she trusted him completely. It was a strange thought, but one that she accepted. Now that she was walking with him in a small park, one of the few that weren't centered around one of the massive pillars, it was an unremarkable park lacking any plants or distinguishing features. It was a field, plain and simple. It was a favorite of the children, ideally suited for running and throwing things. She could see the score of them running around, throwing a fist-sized ball around. Several of the others had a mock sword fight and large sticks, likely from the trees the park surrounded the pillars. One of the children overthrew the ball and it sailed into the air of the others' heads. It rolled to a stop in front of Clint. One of the children, a small Haraith, ran after it, not looking where she was going. She finally got to the ball, but when she got there, Clint had already picked it up. The girl stopped in front of Clint and looked at him, her head bent almost all the way back. "Whoa, you're big," said the girl. Clint smiled. "And you're small." She squinted at him and then pointed at the ball in his hand. "Can I have the ball back?" "Here you go," Clint said, handing the ball back to the girl. "Have fun." The children returned to the games and Jane and Clint continued their walk. She nudged him with her shoulder. "I think you have some admirers," Jane said, pointing her free thumb over her shoulder at the group of children, who had stopped their game to stand and stare at Clint walking. He looked back at them and waved. They scattered. "I don't think they're looking at me," he said. "No, you've got to be the biggest thing that they've ever seen, but you're the most beautiful one that they've ever seen. Don't give me that look," he said, laughing as she gave him a sideways glance. "You know it's true." Well, he sure did know how to give a compliment, Clint Stone. Where's TEDx? She asked abruptly. I've been meaning to talk to him, but I haven't seen him since we got back. Clint shrugged. I don't know. He's probably snuggled up somewhere with a beautiful woman, exchanging words of passion. He bent close and whispered in her ear something that made her blush, her heart racing to her face. Well then, what are we waiting for? She said with a wicked smile. He grinned back at her, an equally wicked expression, and he snaked his arm around her legs before Jane knew what he was doing, knocking her off her feet and scooping her up in his arms. I don't know, he said as he set off to the house a few blocks away. She woke up limb sore and body relaxed, buried under a pile of blankets. It had been an eventful night, even more so than the first night on board the Golden Hound. While they had spent most of the night in the bed, she had only fallen asleep around 2 o'clock in the morning. She rolled onto her side and saw that it was almost 3 in the afternoon. She had been exhausted. Keeping up with Clint Stone was tiring work. Enjoyable, but tiring. Now, where was he? She pushed herself up and slipped her feet into large slippers to keep her feet from touching the cold stone metal floor. She wrapped herself in a large robe and hung on the back of her bedroom door and walked out into the rest of the house. Clint, where'd you go? No answer. She walked into the kitchen and spotted a sheet of paper on the table. Good morning, beautiful. I've gone to play some baseball in the park. Come join when you're up. Love, C. What was baseball? Jane was going to find out. She looked in the mirror and noticed that she was decidedly messy. She brushed it back and pulled it into a single bunch, secured it at the back of her head. Dressing into a pair of old but comfortable pants and shirt, she strode out of the door, heading for the park nearest to her house, the one where Clint had given the ball back to the Haraith girl. Batter up! Clint's voice rang out over the low stone barrier that formed the perimeter of the park. Jane heard a crack, the sound of wood on a hard object. Go, go, go! Said Clint. Run to first. Good. Jay, sir. Throw the ball back in a sec. Great, you've got the hang of it. What was going on? Jane walked through the opening in the barrier that served as a gate to the park. What she saw was confusing. All the children were gathered into the corner of the park, and some in a large group off to the side, and others spread out in a wide arc around Clint, who stood in the middle of them, holding a ball in his hand. Around him, in a diamond shape, 4 large white discs. She didn't know what they were, but each one had a child standing next to it. The one closest to her had 2 children by it, one standing on it and the other one standing next to it. In front of Clint was a child holding a large stick, thick and long. When Jane got closer, she could see that it was her Haraith girl from yesterday. She stood sideways to Clint, her shoulders square and a large stick held in both hands, hovering just over her shoulder. Are you ready? Asked Clint. The girl nodded. Clint tossed a ball and his hand in a nice, gentle arc at the girl, passing right in front of her, and the child behind her scooped it up and tossed it back to Clint. What kind of throw was that? Demanded the girl, her face pinched. I can't hit that. Clint's face turned to a combination of apologetic and amused. Sorry, Kayla. I won't happen again. She looked at him and nodded again. Clint threw the ball again, underhanded like last time, but this time it went a little harder, a little faster, passing several feet in front of Kayla. It would have, but Kayla swung the stick with fury, whipping it through the air, impacting against the ball. With a loud crack, the ball flew into the air and sailed over Clint's head, traveling past the children scattered in the field behind Clint. As soon as the ball had gone a few feet, Kayla had dropped the stick and started sprinting at the white disc near Jane. The child who was standing on the disc sprinted to the next disc in the diamond pattern. What are you waiting for? Yelled Clint at the children in the field. Go get the ball. The 3 closest children jumped up and ran after it. What are you waiting for? Clint asked, looking at the child on the second white disc. Run! He said, moving his hands and shooing gesture. Go home! Why was he telling the kid to go home? They were in the middle of a game. At least, that was what Jane assumed it was. But the kid did not leave the park, instead running to the next white disc and then to the one where Kayla had hit the ball from. When he passed over the disc, half of the children cheered and the other half of them groaned. Kayla was doing the same thing. running close to the first kid's heels. The children in the field had finally managed to chase down the ball, and one of them threw it towards another child standing by the second white disc. She caught it and looked at Clint. "Throw it home and get her out," Clint said. The girl nodded and threw it to the kid standing behind the disc. Kayla noticed the ball flying in and she dove, sliding in the grass until her hands touched the white disc. "Safe," said Clint, swinging his arms out and his body parallel to the ground. "Home run." He walked down from his place in the middle of the discs and lifted his hand for Kayla, who had stood up. "High five?" Clint asked. Kayla looked at him. "Right, you don't know what that is. Smack your hands against mine." Kayla drew back her hand and sent it whistling into Clint's, her palm meeting with a loud smack. Clint winced and shook his head. Kayla grinned at him. He grinned back. "You're quite the pistol," he said, ruffling her hair. She stuck out her tongue at him. He laughed, and Jane walked over. "Good afternoon," she said. The children looked up at her, and then dismissed her when they realized that she wasn't one of the moms. Clint looked up, and his grin grew wider. "Good morning, Sleeping Beauty." "What?" "I'll tell you later." Clint turned to the kids. "All right, it's probably time you guys get home to your parents. Same time tomorrow." The kids chorused in agreement. "Then get out of here," Clint said, shooing them with his hands. They scattered, some leaving in groups, others by themselves. Jane watched them go. Almost every one of them waved at Clint as they left, and he waved back. "So, have a fun game?" Jane asked Clint. He nodded. "Yeah, it's been a long time since I played baseball. It felt good to do it again, even if I only showed them the basics. Can you believe that they've nothing like baseball? Nothing at all. Seeing as I don't understand what baseball is, I can understand it." He looked down at her. "I guess I'll have to just explain it to you." And he did. End of chapter. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. If you wish to support the author, there is a link to the original story, so pop over there and give him your support. If you wish to support this channel, however, there are a few ways to do so. The best and easiest would be to share this video with other people, as well as liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. All of these things tell the algorithm that this channel is at least vaguely interesting, and that may share it with other people. If you wish to support the channel in some other manner, watching my other videos would also help tremendously. Or, if you really like, there is a link down below to leave a tip, or to join the Patreon. Any and all support is very much appreciated. And I hope that you all have a good one until the next time, and I'll see you then. Cheers.